actually the chair for the IB Association of Japan for the last 4 years. I just finished my second tenure of that, so yeah, so know the IB as well as anybody, I guess, in Japan. Yeah, there has been a real focus, especially with the Article 1 schools. And for those who don't know what that is, Article 1 schools are the schools that are actually funded by the Japanese government. Then there's our schools, Gakko Hojin schools, which are nonprofit schools, but we just get recognition and a bit of a tax break. We don't get any funding from the government. I think the big expansion in the IB program has been a lot of the Article 1 schools. Japan was looking to kind of break that mold of being known as you know, just memorization, regurgitation, all of that kind of thing. And our board chair had a big part in that as well. Our board chair is the IB representative for Japan. She was one of the people who pushed it was called the IB 200 movement. So there was a real push from the Japanese government.
Welcome to episode 91 of Tokyo Alumni Podcast. Today, our guest is Daniel Reynolds. He is the head of school at Tokyo International School and the host of HoS, the Head of School Habits podcast. So he runs a podcast, I run a podcast. So it's kind of the merging episode here of two people in that ecosystem of the international school world. The two themes we'll talk about today is what makes a strong head of school, as well as the challenges one can face in that position, as well as a focus on the international school scene there in Tokyo. So I want to first ask you, as far as I know, the only head of school that has their own podcast. So what was sort of the reason why you got started into this podcast world?
Well, actually, yeah, I'm not the only one. So two of my best friends, actually, it's called Where's Your Head At? And Richard is not one of my best friends, but there's three of my friends run a podcast. Where's Your Head At? And my son, actually, who does the marketing and communications alumni stuff at YS at Yokohama International, he's like, you should do your own podcast too. So because I've been talking about doing all this habit stuff, and I'm always preaching habits to everyone, and he's like, so it was he was one of the ones that inspired me. He's like, you should do your own podcast. So he does all the editing for me, which is great. Because that's his world, not mine. So I have a free editor, which always makes it a better show.
So let's just jump right into theme number one, right? What makes a strong head of school? So you became the head of school at Tokyo International School in 2019. Looking back at your first year, what challenges stood out most when stepping into that role?
I mean, there's the obvious. I'll get into another challenge that might be a little more generic. I mean, the obvious challenge was I was in the role for 6 months, not even 6 months, and COVID hit. So,
Yeah.
Brand new school. Thank goodness I knew the country, but the biggest challenge was making that shift during COVID to go, to basically closing school, going online, doing all of those kind of things. I think. But on a more natural, generic head of school transition to moving to another school, I think it's getting to know, I knew the education side of Tokyo International, being at Yokohama International for a long time. We had close ties to Tokyo International. I've even taught the board chair's kids when I was a teacher at YS. But I think one of the big things is when the educational side's one thing, but the business side of school looks different everywhere you go. And Tokyo International was just transitioning from being a school that had an owner to a school that had gone nonprofit. So it was putting in a lot of systems that the school was new to the school, actually, because they had gone, an owner system to a nonprofit system is a very different entity. So putting in all those non-educational processes was a new thing and challenging thing at the school.
I want to dig a little deeper into that point
Yeah.
you mentioned
Yeah.
because it does come up a lot, right? Nonprofit
Yeah.
schools versus those that are not. Can you, for someone who doesn't know how that system works, how do those systems impact essentially the way schools operate? And what's kind of an overview of someone who is not aware of the difference of the two?
Yeah, I mean, if you're at a for-profit school, I mean, that's what it's, basically the title says it all, right? There's an expectation that you make a profit. When I've only worked in a for-profit system once before, and I spent a lot of my time, I was the principal at that school, and I spent a lot of my time, giving the owner or giving that group reports on how many students were in each class and making sure that, the staff-student ratio was where it needed to be for us to be able to make a profit. And a lot of it's more, there are some very good for-profit schools, but for the vast majority of them, it is about, I mean, it's for making money. A nonprofit school is more focused on the educational side of things, in my experience. So, you're really focused at our school. We are, like I said, nonprofit. We're not in it to make any money. Of course, we've got to pay our bills and we've got to make ends meet, but we really, really get to dig into the educational side of things. And I think, we spend a lot of money on professional development and making sure we've got, the best teachers that we can have in our program. So, in a nutshell, I think those are the two big things. There's more of a, I think in the for-profit school, there's more of a focus on the business side, and in a nonprofit, the emphasis is more on the education side of stuff.
Yeah, that's really you added that little caveat there too, right? That there are good for
Oh, there
profits,
are. Yeah,
but
there
it's
are.
just kind of like when it comes to sort of the philosophy, right?
Yeah,
One tends to lean the other way. And I'm actually going to go slightly off script here as well, or maybe
sure.
not off
Yeah,
script,
yeah.
but while
No.
we're on sort of schools, right, and how schools run, I think you're one of the best people in Japan to ask about the IB system, right?
Oh,
The
yeah.
number of IB schools have rapidly increased.
Hmm.
And what do you see kind of what's happening there in the Tokyo scene in regards to the IB program expanding? And from your perspective, from an administrator, how do you explain to parents as well as prospective parents sort of the advantages as well as the challenges the IB system has?
Sure. And I mean, I don't even know if you're aware of this. I was actually the chair for the IB Association of Japan for the last 4 years. I just finished my second tenure of that. So, yeah, so know the IB as well as anybody, I guess, in Japan. Yeah, there has been a real focus, especially with the Article 1 schools. And for those who don't know what that is, Article 1 schools are the schools that are actually funded by the Japanese government. Then there's our schools, Gakko Hojin schools, which are nonprofit schools, but we just get recognition and a bit of a tax break. We don't get any funding from the government. I think the big expansion in the IB program has been a lot of the Article 1 schools. Japan was looking to kind of break that mold of being known as the, you know, just memorization, regurgitation, all of that kind of thing. And our board chair had a big part in that as well. Our board chair is the IB representative for Japan. She was one of the people who pushed it was called the IB 200 movement. So there was a real push from the Japanese government from, I don't know if you know, it's called MEXT. So the Ministry of Education, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes in with MEXT. It doesn't even follow the acronym actually. But anyway, within that organization, they wanted to have 200 IB programs in Japan. They have well over that now. I think we're at like 200. Well, when I finished as IB chair in July of this year, we were at like 220, 230.
Wow.
So yeah, there's been a big push to kind of break the old traditional mold of Japanese education and kind of move it more into 21st century education with critical thinking skills, analysis, those things that, the job market really looks for these days.
Yeah, I mean that's a what? It's a 10 times increase, right? If I'm not
Oh yeah.
mistaken, Gemini
Yeah.
was saying something like it was like 15 schools or something, right? Just 15.
Yeah, I mean, when I started in 1998 here on the international school scene in Japan, I would say, and I was at an IB school because to be an IB school, you only have to run one program. My first school only ran the DP program. The schools after that ran all three programs, like our school does currently. But yeah, in those days, I mean, there might have been maybe 20 if there
Wow.
was that many, but it's absolutely just blown up. And there's a lot of schools, and there's more what are called candidate schools every day. So there's a lot of schools that are applying for candidacy, especially at the really bottom end, actually at the lower end, elementary, or even they have an early learning section for the IB now. So
So would you say that's sort of the standard implementation of the program? Because as you were saying, some schools are DP only, like where I teach right
yep,
now, we are
yep,
American curriculum, DP only. But are you
yep,
seeing kind of the trend maybe being start PYP, then go MYP, and then as you guys have done, I think DP's
yep.
been only in the last few years, right, for you guys?
Yeah, we actually just became DP authorized last year because we were, for a long time. Well, I guess we'll talk about the school later, but we were for a long time a pre-K to 8 school. Added grade 9 a few years ago, 10 last year, 11 this year, which is our first DP cohort. But yeah, no, I don't know. I think it's a mix, I would say, of schools that are starting either at the bottom end, but there's still a lot of schools who just bring on the DP. Like there's another well-known international school in the Tokyo region who just recently adopted the DP program, and that was kind of a surprise to all of us that that school in particular decided to go DP. So I would say it's about half and half. Those are who are implementing it at the very top end, and those who are implementing it at the very bottom end.
That's interesting. And I want to shift to you now,
Hmm,
and personally, and
hmm,
I've seen an interesting sort of trend where, and I mean, this is clearly just anecdotal, but there are some, researches on this as well. But my current head of school, former ice hockey guy, ice hockey coach, head of school
hmm,
now. My head of school, in my previous school, swimmer, also
hmm,
PE teacher, athletic director, principal,
hmm,
head of school. You've
hmm.
kind of followed a similar trajectory, right? Starting your career in PE.
Exactly. Yep.
Have you seen like, do you feel like now that as this position of head of school, do you see that trend of a lot of people kind of having that athletics background? And when you look at that, how has that shaped you personally as the leader you have become today?
Yeah, I mean, worldwide, I think so. Most of well, there was a stat when I was working in the States for a while as a upper school principal at an IB school. A stat I saw that said 67% of leaders in the U.S. were former PE teachers and coaches. So, I think there was, two-thirds of people in what are called senior leadership positions were former PE guys or had a really heavy coaching background. It makes a lot of sense when you think about it. When, our role is really about building a team and about helping people through things and in that whole coaching mentality. I think even teaching's gone a lot that way now that now that teachers are no longer the holders of information. Teachers have taken more of a coaching style standpoint in the fact that kids can learn all the facts from somewhere else, so I need to coach them through things. But yeah, definitely when I think about many of my close friends who are heads, they were either PE teachers or they were really heavily involved in sports and coaching.
That's awesome to hear because my youngest brother is a PE teacher right now,
There
so
you go. There you go.
maybe he'll be a head of school one day.
Give you a
Um,
job somewhere.
yeah. So I came across a leadership piece you wrote about the importance of being vulnerable, and I think
Mm,
that really resonated with me as like a millennial.
mm.
Like, I just feel like we were kind of the generation that I don't know. We always say like the younger generation is soft, right? But like,
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
always
yeah.
felt like, uh, as much as there's some truth to that, as someone, especially, I'm 39, where I'm kind of mid-career.
Hmm.
I feel like the leaders that really help us millennials as well as Gen Z are people that resonate with your writing, right? I recommend
Hmm.
anyone to actually, I'll probably post it on this YouTube, that specific
Sure.
article.
Mm.
Yeah, can you tell me a bit about your philosophy there when it comes to leaders being kind of open and vulnerable?
Yeah, I mean, I think if we're all true to ourselves, we know that we don't have the answer to everything. And I think if you try to pretend to, have the answer to everything, people are going to find you as an imposter pretty quickly. So yeah, I mean, I'm the first one to get up there and say, I have absolutely no idea what we're doing or how this is working. So can someone explain it to me in really, really simple terms? Yeah, and I think, and that's one of the things I guess we're not into that, but when I'm hiring, I always look for people who have very different strengths than I do. And I think that's a vulnerable thing as well because, I need to rely on those people to, I'm not an attention to detail guy. So our two principals that we have right now are amazing attention to detail people. So, and they have to be because, I need to make sure that they fill in the gaps that I'm not going to be able to do, not going to be effective enough for the school in that sense. So I think, in that sense, being vulnerable, I think being the brunt of a joke is totally fine by me. I think the staff, I don't mind being the one that gets up there and people laugh and, if it makes everybody happy and we all get along, then that's fine.
Yeah, no, I think that's a wonderful just position. Like I say, even in the classroom, right? It's like a great teacher who says,
Oh
I don't know
yeah.
the answers,
Yeah.
but
No, I don't know if you've seen Rita Pearson's Every Child Needs a Champion or Every Kid Needs a Champion, sorry. But yeah, if you haven't, it's one of my favorite YouTube videos. Basically, she gets on there and she talks about how she was teaching a math lesson and she's not, math wasn't her thing. And at the end, she realized she did everything wrong and she said she apologized to the students and they said, "Oh, we knew you were wrong right from the very beginning, but you were having so much fun and you seemed so excited. We just let you go." So yeah,
I haven't seen
it's
that, but that's such a,
oh
yeah, that's a great anecdote, right? Just building those relationships. And I think that
yeah.
kind of segues well into the next question, which is like, there's a word I like that Gen Z uses a lot, which is vibes, right? They say
Mm,
vibes, like the
mm,
atmosphere, right?
yeah,
Essentially. So
yeah.
I feel like we both have been in schools, right, where you just walk down the hall and you feel good vibes or negative vibes.
Yeah.
From your position as head of school, how do
Yeah.
you help cultivate good vibes? And here I'm just presuming you guys have good
Hmm.
vibes at your school.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty happy about her. I mean, I love the vibe. I mean, people. I mean, we've got parent testimonials, and actually, one parent even uses that word. When you walk in, it was just a vibe. Like there was a sizzle going on. I think the first. I think he actually says so. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I think it's really. I think the building culture is what we just talked about. It's about building relationships. From the top to the bottom, and I open the gate every morning. I'm the one that gets to open the gate and welcome the students in every day. And we're a very unique school in the fact that we're on a first name basis to with all the students and all the parents and all the everyone there. So, the high school kids will come in and say, "Hey, how you doing, Dan? Oh, pretty good." And I still coach basketball, so I'm close to a lot of them, and we'll chat. But then just the same, the little kindergarten kids. I used to have a group of kindergarten kids 2 years ago who every Monday morning would come up to me and say, "Hey, Dan, how was your weekend?" It's like, "Oh, pretty
Yeah.
good, guys. How was your weekend?" And I think it's just, we work really hard at building relationships at our school and that everybody feels safe and comfortable. And I think that's really the key to the success of any school.
That's awesome to hear that you coach.
Yeah.
You might be actually one of the only heads I've heard that, had that type of, connection with students.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. I mean, I love to go. I went on a ski trip recently with students. I still coach the basketball team. We ran into a problem where we didn't have anyone to coach volleyball, so I actually helped out with the middle school C team girls volleyball this year too, which was, yeah, that was taking me back a little bit. But yeah, no, I think, any connection. We got into education to be with kids, so I mean, hopefully everybody got into education to be with kids, and so I need to take every opportunity. And I can tell you, it's my favorite part of the day,
Yeah.
actually. And it's really good for me to get out. And if someone says, "Well, I really need to meet you," I'm like, "I'm really sorry, I've got practice with the kids, or I've got this, and we can meet tomorrow." And yeah, and it just develops that relationship. And I think it also sends a really good message to the rest of the staff that, when we're trying to cultivate that school, what our values are trust, inspire, support. When we're trying to cultivate that supportive atmosphere we have at school is like, if I'm coaching, everybody else can get involved too. So there's no, well, I'm too busy for this or I'm too, that's not what I do. When we hire, we intentionally hire people who really want to get stuck in.
Yeah, and that's really inspiring because I'm a faculty member now, but if I ever do go into administrative roles, I've seen some principals every once in a while
Yeah.
step in, and I always thought that was already incredible, but
Yeah.
you might be the first head
Well, our,
to
our
be a coach.
principal actually coaches our high school or upper school, we call it at our place. Our upper school principal coaches volleyball as well. So it's kind of a nice culture we have at our school that everybody just kind of gets involved and does everything. So our lower school principal has a rock climbing club. So so yeah, yeah, everybody gets in.
That is really cool. And Tokyo, right? I mean, it's in your
Hmm.
guys' school's name, but you have
Yeah.
been integrated in the ecosystem, not just international
Hmm.
schools, right? You've worked in
Right.
various continents, but especially Japan, right?
Yeah.
20 plus years, if I'm not mistaken. Um,
27.
so you've really seen
Yeah.
it, right? You've seen it
Yeah.
as a faculty and right as AD and as a administrator.
Yeah.
And every school's unique culture. I went to SIJ,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
what do you think like Tokyo International School's culture, other than the stuff you've already mentioned about first name basis and kind of
Yeah.
building a close-knit community, makes sort of TIS?
Yeah, I think I mean, and I don't know if you can read it, it's probably pretty small, but behind me is our mission statement. And it starts out, we are a truly international community. I think we're very fortunate in where we're located and that we've been able to keep our real internationalism. Some schools have kind of struggled with that and had to bring in, more local kids and stuff like that. And not that that's a bad thing, but that's our part of our identity is being truly international. So we have 72 nationalities out of our less than 500 kids. There's no dominant group. I think the Americans are the largest at like maybe 12, 13%, but there's no dominant group. It's really, really an eclectic mix of people from all over the world. And we intentionally do that in our admissions too. Recently we had someone had applied that we didn't have that nationality at our school, and it's like, oh, they get bumped up the ladder because we want to be true to our mission. So I think where one difference between us and maybe most of the other international schools in Japan now is that we've been able to remain really, really international and diverse in that sense. The other thing I think, I don't know if this is different than everybody, but again, because we're downtown Tokyo, obviously we have facility limits. We don't have ASIJ's facilities or YS's facilities with all those things, but we have a thing that we say Tokyo is our classroom. So we use everything at our fingertips in Tokyo. So we're always going out to museums and theaters and water recycling plants. Pretty much you can whatever you're studying, there will be something linked to that in Tokyo. So we have 9 buses. So we
Yeah.
use our buses a lot, our little micro buses, and we zip our students all over the place to use Tokyo as a classroom, just to kind of combat that real urban issue that we have, that everyone has if you're a real urban school of space. So yeah, and I mean that's one of the exciting things about our new move to Takanawa Gateway. We're moving site in August, and we've already had a meeting with all the other partners in there. And there's a building, health and wellness center, two buildings down that said, oh, you can use our pool during the day. Hardly anybody's using it, so we'll have a pool. And there's just a variety of different things that we're going to be able to reach out and use in the community to kind of supplement our program and supplement our facilities.
I love that. Tokyo is our classroom, right? Whoever came up with that in marketing
That's our
needs to
marketing
get
director. So
yeah.
the marketing director came up with that one, so he gets a big check mark for that.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I feel like that's kind of been the trend too. And you can tell me if I'm
Mhm.
wrong, but I just feel like in the last decade or two, I follow the various international schools in Tokyo, even though I don't go there anymore.
Yeah.
And I just feel like people are leveraging that location more.
Yeah.
Is that a trend you've noticed even outside of TIS?
Yeah, completely. I mean, I don't think, recently, I think the way things, and especially since learning's changed, right? I mean, we want, as it says in our mission statement, we're dedicated to holistic well-being and meaningful learning. And we want learning can't be meaningful if it's just stuck in a classroom. You have to give students real world experiences. And we know that attention, research supports it across the board that, keeping students' attention has become much more difficult in the digital age. So in order to do so, we get them out and we get them in really exciting opportunities that will help them with their learning.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I love that. And as you were saying earlier, the rules change, right? It's a lot more facilitation
Oh, yeah,
from
totally.
teachers and like so students will graduate Tokyo International School, right? And let's say you
Mhm.
meet them 10
Yeah.
years later, 20 years later, although you already have experience at to some degree, right, with your students
Yeah,
from
yeah.
IS.
We were just talking about that. I mean, some of my graduates from YS are, 20 years ago almost, I actually just went to a 20th anniversary for one of my graduating classes from there. So,
Yeah, so
yeah.
like they're 40 now, and
Yep.
in the future when these guys are now 30, late 30s, or close to 40, what
hmm
characteristics do you think they can carry on from their time at Tokyo International School as adults when you meet them many years later?
We want to turn out really good human beings. That's really our focus. It's not about academics. It's not about anything else. It's really, you know, how good of humans can we help them become? So, and when I just met my former graduating class at 20 years, it was big hugs all the way around, and just being really interested in what they were doing. And I think what I want to see from this my former students is just that they're doing things that they love, that they're really interested in the next generation. Most of them have kids now in that group. So, it was really interesting to hear what they were doing with their kids and just be that really, and what I love about international kids, just be that really inquisitive, happy learner and just, keep on learning, keep open-minded. I think that's one of the other things I love about international school students is that they're, because they're exposed to so many different cultures and so many different experiences, they're totally open-minded and willing to try anything. And so, yeah, I would hope that that continues when I see them when they're older. And that certainly was the case when I bumped into that graduating class from what we met. I think it was in September, October. It was fantastic.
So when you mentioned this like global mindedness, it's obviously something I
Mm,
relate to, right? Being
yep,
bicultural,
yep,
bilingual, as I believe your son is as well. And you just mentioned
yep,
earlier your son works
yep,
in Tokyo. What
yep.
makes Tokyo special? Because you've been there a while and now your son has returned. What do you think brings people back there?
What makes it special is just the opportunities that are here, right? I mean, when I'm hiring too, it's like whatever your interest is, you're going to be able to find it in this city. Whether you're big into whether you're especially if you're a foodie, if you're into all different kinds of food, but I know people who are into art painting who found places where they can go do that. I mean, if you're into sports, when I first came here to the Yokohama area, I joined a men's basketball club and played in the Yokohama League. So I think one of the great things about this area is that there is something for every. I mean, you'll be able to follow your passion and continue to follow your passion because there's just so many opportunities in Tokyo to do that kind of thing. I know musicians who go and still play in clubs and do all that kind of stuff, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just it's such a great atmosphere in the Tokyo Yokohama area.
And great food.
Oh, I mean, there's the best food on the planet. Yeah, and it's so authentic. That's what I tell people when they come here too, right? I
Yeah.
mean, if you go to a Thai restaurant, the people making your food are going to be Thai. If you go to, it doesn't, Japan really, yeah, they demand authenticity. So the food is fantastic.
I think today you've been able to really help me better understand Tokyo International School, your philosophy as a
Mm.
head of school. You're making me want to return to Japan a little bit, but that will be
There you
for a
go.
while. I'll be
Mhm.
starting my new job in Taiwan actually in June, so I'll be a little
Oh,
bit closer.
congratulations. Oh, good for
But
you. That's an exciting place. So,
yeah, so a little bit closer to you guys in Saudi Arabia,
yep,
which where I'm
yep,
presently working. But yeah,
yep.
thank you so much for, taking time out of your busy day. And
No,
yeah, I will definitely be paying attention to that next episode. You said episode 4, but you've recorded
yeah,
like
episode 4
20.
coming out in about a week, and then yeah, they'll come out every 2 weeks after that. Just kind of try to keep it as steady and as constant as possible.
Awesome. Well, that was episode 91. Guest was
There you go.
Mr. Daniel Reynolds. Thank you so much.
Not a problem. Thanks for having me on.